Welcome to another Soccer Down Here 1v1. Time to catch up with El Presidente, the president of the Asheville City Soccer Club, Ryan Kelley, friend of the show. Ryan, thanks for hopping back on with us for a 1v1.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be back, as always.
All right, so I guess I'll start with the incredibly generic question. How's the off-season been?
Eventful, mostly behind the scenes, but it's definitely never boring. We've learned in our first 2.5 years of doing this. Always something going on. There's always a new project to be working on, and with that being said, there's always a lot of excitement as you kind of get into the home stretch here, leading up to the season, and it's always more fun when you're in a packed stadium and kicking the ball around.
And so, how were the terrible twos, I guess, when it came to Asheville City? I know that we sit there and we think about that for children, and this is, in a lot of ways, this is your child. What were the terrible twos like?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I actually have a 2-year-old at home, so I've never really thought about it that way. But now that you mention it, there are a lot of parallels for sure. It was a good year for us. I mean, I think obviously the women's team, really took Asheville City to an entirely another level. We knew that we knew it would be a big deal, but I think we were blown away with the community response, and to be the number one market in second division and crack the top 10 for all the markets in the United States was really something we could have only dreamed of. So we were thrilled to be able to do that, and I think that was the lasting memory of that second year for us.
And so now you sit there and you're heading toward year three. And one of the reasons that we wanted to catch up with you was now the academy aspect being brought into all of this. I guess let's go back to the genesis of the idea. And was this a
Sure.
part of the grand plan, or was this something that kind of sat there and it's like, yeah, we probably should add this? What was how did this all come to the fore? Was this a part of the plan from the beginning?
Um, a little bit of both, I guess. It's definitely something that we've thought about since we started, but the what it actually became is really just developed over the last few months. We've been kind of chipping away at this idea for some time, and what really motivated the move was the environment that we had in our first teams. We had really large rosters from both the men's and women's side, with a really diverse group, which is positive in a lot of ways, but it also presents a lot of challenges in that we had 4 or 5 really talented local high school kids on the team, competing against people who've played professionally in their mid 30s. There's a big gap there, and while there's a lot of benefits to that, there's also some downsides. So we see this as a way to really refocus the first team roster so that everyone on that first team roster will be there for one purpose of competing for time on the field. The real benefit, though, is that rather than working with 4 or 5 boys and girls that are at that elite level, and we see being part of what we do in the immediate years to come, this allows us to work with 30 boys and girls. So we get to work with a lot more local youth and sooner, and get them into Asheville City program and what it means to be an Asheville City player. So really a dual benefit there was kind of the driving force behind doing this. The other thing was that we kind of identified a gap in programming locally. We got a lot of feedback from the more accomplished players that in the summertime there's really not much going on, and so we saw this as an opportunity to kind of fill that gap, provide high level training during the summer, which also complements existing club programming and school programming. So that's a really important part of this. Is it's really not an academy in the traditional sense where we're kind of taking on local clubs that already exist. We think they do good work, and we want to complement and supplement that good work. So what we're doing is really just something extra, and allows them to continue working with their positive environments at school and in their clubs.
And for those that might just know Asheville City in the sense of seeing Mystery Soccer Theater 3000, keeping an eye on them, in the
Yeah.
standings and competitions and things like that, whether it's on the men's or the women's side. What does the youth side of soccer mean to Western Carolina, and how integral is it to the fabric of the soccer community on the whole for those that don't get the chance to be there close up to see it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge part of the culture here. I've told you guys in the past when we were launching, just in general, Asheville has been a soccer city for a long, long time. This wasn't a situation where we had to come in and teach the locals to love the game. They already did love the game. They've supported the game. Everyone's kids play the game. There's one really large, really well established, well run youth club here, HFC, that um, does really good work, and there's some other smaller clubs that we work with as well. So certainly, well established and providing a lot of positive experiences. Um, but we kind of thought that this was our way to kind of step in and just provide something that was missing for a small number of players. And we kind of see this as our way of getting into the youth space, and what that becomes. We're going to kind of let the experience of the kids and their families kind of drive that.
Is there an expectation for the academy out of year one, other than placing 75 kids with teams across the planet? I mean, what is the expectation for the academy? I guess in the first year, and then over the next couple of seasons, do you think?
Sure, yeah, I think that really goes back to, we didn't want to do this just because. I think a lot of teams out there, they start a women's team because it's the next thing to do. You start a youth side because it's the next thing to do. That's really not the approach we're taking. We really want to do things in a substantive and meaningful way. And we asked ourselves, what do we have to offer that, others do not have to offer? And for us, it's the experience. It's, the opportunity to bring these kids in kind of a transitional setting. Like, if you're thinking about wanting to play at the next level, this is what that looks like. This is, you're going to interact with our first team players and staff. We're going to have hybrid training sessions with crossover between both teams. You're going to be involved in more of that, the off days and rehab. What does that look like? It's not just showing up to practice a few times a week and, that's it. It's what does it look like to take the game more seriously if you want to take that next step? There's going to be film sessions involved. So for us, we think that it's really providing an experience that you wouldn't get anywhere else for local kids. Now, ultimately, the goal here is to play a role in developing the next generation of talent, and ultimately the goal is for these kids to be first team, not just players, but superstars, and in the years to come.
Is there an age limit? Is there a set time when you're looking to start to bring players into an academy setting? Because I know that in some sports, you'll sit there and you'll have integration of young athletes from really young ages to try to get them into a system which builds success for the club from its most foundational levels. What's
Right.
the age idea here?
So to start off, what we're going to do is, it's a pretty broad scope of age, and we're just saying high school age. So um, it'll be a situation where we'll handle that on a case by case basis. It's still small enough to where we can do that, and it's going to be a situation where if you're good enough, you're old enough. But we definitely we think this is a good entry point. I, I think a lot of those models are very interesting. Where I just saw that Greenville FC launched an academy, and they're kind of going on the opposite end of the spectrum, and starting with a younger group. And I think there's a lot of merit to that. We just thought this was the best fit for us, and I think it really goes back to the reason we did this was because identifying opportunity in the first team environment and ways to improve that, both on the first team side and to get more kids involved. That's really what kind of drove our decision to focus on high school age to begin with.
Well, because I would imagine that you want to be, and this is probably going to come across as somewhat cliche, but you want to be the first you when it comes to your academy. You don't want to be someone else's academy idea if it doesn't fit who you are. True?
Right. Yeah, you cut out on me a little bit there, so I missed a little bit of that question. Do you mind repeating that?
No, just the notion of you wanting to be the first you. when it comes to setting up an academy idea. You don't want to be a
Sure.
carbon copy of someone else if that's not what your fabric is.
Right. No, that's definitely true. I mean, we certainly look to, our peers and others out there who are doing good things and take inspiration from that. But I think it's really important that, we want to be a solutions-based organization where, we're identifying problems and putting it, very specific solutions in place that address those problems. Um, and I think if you're simply taking another model that may work, in another place somewhere else, that's not necessarily going to align with what you want to accomplish. So that's definitely true.
All right, last question for you, and thanks for hanging out with us here for a 1v1. I know that
Sure.
a lot of folks look at the venue that you're in, and it's part of the charm of Asheville City. And I know that there are some things that you've wanted to do, and what the city and the county have wanted to do when it comes to stadium renovation and expansion. What's the latest on the stadium issue? Has there been any development?
Yeah, I knew you would get back to those growing pains. That's definitely some of that terrible twos coming back into the conversation. So yeah, it's a huge part of our day to day right now is staying involved in the project here with the renovation. There are a lot of people at the table. So right now we're working with the city, working with other user groups, working with the local neighborhoods um, to try and renovate a facility in a way that not only serves our needs now, but it allows us to grow to the level that we think we can. So um, there's a lot of exciting things going on in the soccer world right now, especially at the level um, that we're at. A lot of new opportunities have arisen that weren't necessarily present a few years ago, and we think that if the stadium situation resolves itself in the way that we would like, it opens up a lot of interesting possibilities for us. So Memorial Stadium is a huge part of our identity and our culture. It's certainly home for us. We see it as more than just a place to play, um, and we think that we'd certainly like to be there long term. So we're hopeful that the process will play out in our favor, and in the near future, we'll be asking our supporters to let the city know the same.
Well, Ryan, as always, thanks for the update. Congratulations on the Academy edition there at Asheville City. How do folks keep an eye on things on social media to make sure that they're up to date with everything going on up there as the NPSL season is coming up really right around the corner?
Yep, everything is really consistent. All of our social handles are at Asheville CSC. We have a newsletter if you'd like to sign up for that. And yeah, we'd love to. We love talking to you guys and know that we speak to a base that expands well beyond Asheville when we talk to you guys. So we really appreciate the opportunity and look forward to next time.